are set. Here.
When this game was announced way back in 2019, when the Persona fever, as I like to call it, was still much booming with the news of the world version of Persona 5 game coinciding with Strikers, I was hyped and thought the game made sense and it was intriguing and was a dream combination for me since I both liked the Persona and Warrior series, and I finally bought and finished the game. In fact, I bought the deluxe edition and received the game 4 days earlier before release. And deciding on how to go about this review, so this time I'm going to structure it differently, and knowing how the story sensitive Persona games are, so when I get to the story part and in detail of the review, it will be a warning and a timestamp in the video and description. But I'm ready to talk about it and I have a lot to say. Let's get started. Now right off the bat, when you boot the game up for the first time, you are granted bonuses for having Persona 5 Vanilla or Royal or both, which I really liked and made me glad to have played those great games. And what you get is a BGM selective of past Persona games, and seeing as Persona 4 Golden is my favorite Persona game, it was really nice to hear the battling cameras from that OST. But there's a caveat with that, and let me explain on that in a little bit. The thing I noticed from the start is they took core elements of Persona 5 game and did a good job in translating them into a world style game format, which I really liked. Even the menu kept its stylish aesthetic to the game, combat in the game. I would say the combat made it more visually appealing and made using your Persona more worth it, and they amazed me seeing the showtime attacks of the characters, which gave them more depth and feel and characterization. I feel they did better than the original and the Royal game did. Now here's my second biggest problem with the game. There's not enough enemies in the game. When you get in encounters, there's maybe like 10 enemies per shadow at best, which defeats the purpose of being a Royal style game because the whole enjoyment is getting loads of kills, which is a real shame because they incorporate things like slide movement and destructible environments and there's nothing to benefit from it. And it's also a detriment to the music. The problem I ran into the most is that the battle ends so fast, the music will barely start up and I can't enjoy it. The only time I feel like a real world format game is when hacking missions aren't being done, and those happen in waves of enemies till time's up. Outside of boss battles, the combat was undesired to me.
Joker, your defense is reduced. Wait, it's
Show
over?
me your true self.
That flew by. Look, they're panicking.
Yeah, we got this. Strike.
The next segment I want to speak on is the dungeons in the game. Visually they look nice and have nice concepts, but ultimately fall short of the dungeons of Persona 5, and very bland as far as exploration goes unless you're hunting down strong shadows, and even then there are a few of them or doing requests. The saving grace for the dungeons in this game was the bits and pieces you traverse them, as well the platforming sections. And the checkpoints are nice, although they mostly go unused if you are doing a straight playthrough because there's not much to go looking for outside of chests and strong enemies, hence the bland exploration. And some of the dungeons have similar parts where the repetition become noticed, unlike the base game where it is easy to differentiate the dungeons from one another. And high key, the biggest flaw for me is the dungeon's OST is subpar. And honestly, I can't even remember a level where it had good OST. I could handle bland level design and repetition, but without good OST, it's hard to get through in all honesty, which is shocking from a Persona game. Hey listen, I think I make my point. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of the game, I want to speak on some more tidbits. Now, my other problem I have with the game is they take so damn long to actually start playing the game. It felt like more of a visual novel as recording it. From the beginning, it was like around an hour before I actually started playing the game outside of the tutorial. And even then, there was more expedition and padding. There's also a grinding aspect to the game as you have requests like you did in the main game. Some are recurring, some are one-time deal, and some are even area restricted requests. Example. Say you want to leave the city and a character wants you to do something, then you'll be warned that you cannot do the mission if you proceed forward. And as for Joker's persona in the Velvet Room, the way you get your mask is through drops when killing the small groups of enemies you do get. And I like how they made so your excess personas never go to waste. For example, you defeat a persona on the field that you have possession of it already, when it gets stronger. Granted, the variety of personas is limited in the dungeons. Even in the total of the game is limited, which I expect because this is a spin-off game. And the bomb points barely act as social link benefits to an extent, and you get them through quests, battling, and story progression. One last thing to touch on is when you go to the cities, they're very hollow. The stores are bullshit and they essentially don't have HP, SP items, and you really don't need to buy them if you hop out to dungeons and hop back in them, because you'll be fully healed and there isn't any set day you have to do anything. Now the shop in this game for weapons, protectors, etc. is limited, and also healing items are also limited. I'm assuming so it won't be a walk in the park, and they made you do requests to expand these items. And all this is to really make you to be mindful where you spend your bond points to help you, whether it be grinding, whether it be prices, the money, or the pickups, etc. So here comes the story. I'll put a spoiler warning up right now, and I'll put a timestamp in the description so you guys can have enough time to and on the screen, so you guys can have enough time to skip to the other part of the review, so you can just get over the story details and just give my final thoughts on the game. As I said before, this game is heavy on dialogue and exposition, and I found the story to be mediocre personally because it mimics Persona 5 and is very predictable, unfortunately, with a lot of padding. Let me elaborate. You have your non-human partner who you meet in the story who don't know much about themselves. Check. You have a new character who you don't really use to the third fourth of the game. Check. You have your villains who you really don't feel any real feelings towards because you hardly interact with them outside the dungeons, compared to Kamoshida, who's doing horrible things in the school and who's directly affecting you, trying to get you expelled, or Shido, where Joker is more of a personal vendetta at the beginning of the Persona 5 to the end game. All you really know in Strikers, people are doing bad things that need to be stopped. The moral compass is present, but not the emotion behind it, if that makes sense. Going back to what I said about the plot being similar to the main game, they even made a quote-unquote trap for the Phantom Thieves, but I popped for a dope figure because why not, even down to the God boss battle. Even though I mildly enjoyed it, but it didn't have the same foreboding feeling like Yaldabaoth had, and it feels much more unauthentic, even though they try to replicate it with Lavenza. And Ichino feels the Goro Ketchiro, but has the same problems base Persona as he did, which I love how they addressed it in the world with his social link, and it felt more proper opposed to the base game. And Strikers came off lack of emotion because you barely interacted with this woman and didn't see her feelings or motivation to the climax of the game. Even that was weak sauce because she literally had a change of heart after the conflict. The only thing that was appealing to me was finding out the password for the dungeons because it gave a little more insight to the villain mindset. And also the investigative segments of finding out who the moniker of the jail was lackluster within itself. Because all you're really doing is talking like 3 or 4 NPCs and you're just done. It's just a really excuse to go out and have a walk around a section of the city. And that wraps up my feelings of the story. And the one thing that became very apparent to me that the main game for it was great when it came to balancing story pacing and freedom. Such as after you finish a palace, you can do whatever you want with the remainder of your free time to either grind mementos, increase social links, etc. The game was chock full of things to do. You can even wait till the last minute to do your palace run and have your fun first. Strikers on the other hand, there's really nothing but plot and exposition. It doesn't really give you a break outside of being in the dungeon. And the plot that minds I wasn't particularly impressed by it, and it even got so bad I started not to get my full attention because it became so long, and it can drain your attention span by being long, not enticing enough with dungeons that have more to be desired if I'm being truthful. On paper, this crossover game could have been something amazing, but it was poorly executed and it leaned a little bit too far to the Persona side. And unfortunately, it's stuck in this weird limbo, even if the story wasn't up to my liking. The saving grace could have been the gameplay, but they didn't even stick with the Warriors format where you capture territories X, Y, and Z. And honestly, it's just a mess. I can see why this game didn't do desired numbers in Japan, and it makes me think how much I would rather have Persona 5 Arena if it ever becomes a thing. Because I'm sure the license will be better executed over and has the arc system works. They proved that once already. My final recommendation for this game is only pick it up if you're a hardcore Persona 5 fan. Other than that, if you're more of a Warriors fan, this game isn't for you. And if you're a fan of both like me, wait for it to go down for 30 and under. Also disappointed that this game didn't scratch my Warriors game itch, that I went out and bought Hyrule Warriors. I didn't have no intention of playing, but I love the first one and I know what the game is capable of. And a final note, they were smart not to add Warriors part in the title because it definitely would have been unfitting for the franchise as a whole. Let me know in the comments below, did you pick up this game? Do you plan on picking up this game? I really want to know your thoughts because I've been seeing a lot of mixed reviews, but you guys already know my stance on this game and hopefully you guys heard me out. But other than that, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and talk to me in the comments. I'll be here. Other than that, there are going to be more reviews. I'm planning on reviewing Hyrule Warriors. I got Nier on the gaming block too, so there will be content coming on the channel. But other than that, let me know. Have a good day. Goodbye.